All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Air with Brian Gregory. We are in Fort Worth, Texas, as always, the right side of the Metroplex. We've got a lot to unpack here today. Some may say this is the slow season, but I counteract that and say that this is the season that on this show, we really dig in deep because nobody else is. Well, everybody else is in, Cancun and Pensacola Beach and, Jamaica, Antigua, whatever. We're here on the air getting you ready for this upcoming college football season because it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an exciting one. And so we're here to break it all down for you. So on the agenda, on the docket, if you will, for today, I love that word. We're going to be giving my top 25 teams in college football, as well as my reaction to the Brock Purdy extension that took place the other day on Friday. That was in the Fort Worth Stockyards when that took place. I recorded a live video there and put it up on all of my short platforms. But today we have my top 25 teams. Now, going into this list, I will give a little precursor here. There's going to be some rankings here that are going to piss some people off. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I welcome that. I welcome the criticism. And if you're here for it, please give it to me. I would love to banter back and forth. But without further ado, here we go with the BGG top 25. And again, this is preseason. This is post-spring because the spring portal just closed. So now we have a more, accurate lens through which we can view the season. And so, of course, you may have injuries and stuff that happen in fall camp. But this is my list right now, given the resources and the outlook that we have currently. And so at number 25, we've got Boise State. Now, Boise State has 69% returning production, which is huge. That's massive. That's top 10 going into this year, I believe. I want to say that's second in G5. You've got Maddox Madsen and Braxton Faley returning. And so you've got some key people who were integral in Boise State's run this year to a Mountain West championship and to a spot in the playoff, a first-round bye, given the format that we have. Boise State was able to skip the first rounds. The CFP gave them that pass. And so this is a great, high-caliber G5 program. This, to me, right now, is the best G5 program in the FBS. However, at the end of these rankings, I'm going to mention one who's going to challenge them a lot this year. So Boise State at 25. At 24, I've got Kansas State. This is a team that's been 9-4 the past 2 years. They felt like they're right there at the cusp, but they're still kind of far away from their own destiny. Like they were competitive for a Big 12 championship late in the year last year, but they kind of fell off. They were outpaced by your Arizona States and your Iowa States of the world. But this is a team that has all the ingredients in place. You've got Avery Johnson coming back, and he's somebody that a lot of people are expecting to take the leap, the next jump this year. And I can very well see it happening. Again, Chris Kleiman is building something really special in Kansas State. The culture there is strong. They're consistent. Like I said, 2 seasons in a row of 9-4. So they're doing something right. They're consistently winning. It's just taking that next step. But that's why they're at number 24. All right, number 23, I've got Ole Miss. And there's a lot of uncertainty here with the Reds, because they had 82% of their starters last year go to the NFL or not be with the team anymore. And so, those names include Jackson Dart, Juice Watkins, Trey Harris, Walter Nolan. There's dogs that are not on this Ole Miss team anymore, and it's going to hurt. They're going to have to recover from that. But it is in a season like this where you can very well see a team like Ole Miss, kind of buy into the narrative of everybody's overlooking us. Let's prove them wrong. And if that coaching administration is anything of what I think it is, that will be bulletin board material this year. And that will be very much used and capitalized on by Lane Kiffin. And so Austin Simmons is their quarterback this year. He's a graduate at the age of 19, which is insane. But we have not seen a lot of him. We've seen Jackson Dart the past 2 years. So it's a big mystery. A lot of his receiving core is gone. But Lane Kiffin has recruited at a high level. He's used the transfer portal at a very high level. And for that reason, I cannot doubt Ole Miss, even though they lost a lot of guys. So I've got Ole Miss at number 23. Number 22, I've got what I think is one of the most just under the radar, consistent programs over these past several years. And it's Louisville, or Louisville, some people say. Jeff Brom has done a great job assembling that culture there. For those of y'all that don't know, Louisville landed Miller Moss from USC as their quarterback this year. So they have been reliant on the transfer portal these past several years when it comes to their quarterbacks. Like they had Tyler Shuck last year, and now they've got Miller Moss. They're one of those teams that they use that transfer portal for turnover. But I think Miller Moss is going to be great in this Louisville program. I think they'll have a dynamic pass-heavy offense per usual, but they'll incorporate the run game a lot, as you've seen Louisville do. And if you look last year, they had one of those seasons where they lost 3 of their 4 games to teams who ended the season ranked. And these games were close. They had a lot of one-possession losses last year. And so what that tells me is that this is a good football team who maybe just mismanaged when it meant the most last year. But nonetheless, I see them coming into this season with a lot of momentum. I've got Louisville at number 22. At number 21, I have the story of the year last year, the Indiana Hoosiers. Kurt Cignetti's Indiana Hoosiers. I think they're going to capitalize off of the momentum that they had last season. This is another team that used the transfer portal to get their quarterback. Francisco Mendoza. They've got Elijah Surratt coming back, their star receiver. And so I don't think they'll quite be what they were last year. This doesn't give me playoff team vibes. I don't know if they're in the top 4 or top 5 in the Big Ten. But as we all know, the Big Ten has become an increasingly more and more competitive conference. So they're a top 5 team in an uber competitive conference. That's a good team. That's good enough for number 21. That's where I have the Hoosiers. All right. Number 20, I'm a lot lower on this team than I was last year. And I've given this team a lot of praise the past 2 seasons. But they've disappointed me. And that's why I have that number 20. Your Texas A&M Aggies. This is, once again, one of the most talented rosters in college football because A&M has the financial resources to be able to put that together every year. But like I say, you're only as good as your starting quarterback. In these past couple of years, well, A&M hasn't really had it. Connor Wegman did not turn out the way they expected. Haynes King did not translate in their system the way that he has with Georgia Tech. That's really disappointing. We started to see Marcel Reed start to become more and more confident last year. And so I want to see him take a page out of last year and insert into this year. If you can see that, I can see this being a 9-10 win Texas A&M team. But as we all know, this is, historically an 8-4, 8-4, 9-3 team every year. That just is what it is. I will say A&M has a terrifying running back room, and so that can be used to their benefit this year. But they're one of those. They are one of those teams where year in year out the expectations up there. They have a lot of blue chips. This should be one of the best teams in college football, one of the best teams in the SEC. But something just doesn't click, and I don't get it. That's why I had them at 20, but they could outperform that. My man Luke Close, who always joins me in college basketball and college football, he'll be hopping on here soon. Says Texas A&M generational losers. It really burned me a couple times, Luke. I'll say that. I had a lot of confidence in that A&M team going into last season. I made a great video about them, got thousands of views. So thank you, Aggie faithful, for supporting me. They are one of my most supportive fan bases. So is Arkansas, which is a crazy clash. But caps off to A&M and all the support that I get from them. So the fans, I love y'all, but the team, you've made me look like an ass these past couple of years. So that's why I've got you at 20. Number 19. This is one that's going to shock a lot of people. And you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for the smoke. At number 19, I've got Georgia Tech. This is the most underrated team in college football. What Brett Key is doing there right now is unbelievable because this is a team that just 3-4 years ago was dead in the water. But now, I think that they are one of the more competitive teams in the ACC. I think they can be better than Louisville. I think they're better than SMU. I think they're better than a lot of your teams in the ACC. The one team that really stands in their way is Clemson. You could even say they're better than Miami, Syracuse. This team could very well be number 2 in the ACC. And so that's why I have that number 19. Haynes King, like I just alluded to with A&M, he goes into that Georgia Tech system. And he really starts to find his way. He really starts to look comfortable. And they've got some high-caliber guys in this building. There's a couple ACC teams out there that have SEC or Big Ten caliber talent. And Georgia Tech is one of them. I think the other two are Clemson and Miami. But Georgia Tech has some dogs in this building. And I think they really found their identity against Georgia last year. That's who I really think they are. It's who they were against Georgia. They were up 17-0 on the Dogs at one point in Sanford Stadium. I mean, this is a good team. This team is no joke. I have the Yellow Jackets, the resurging Yellow Jackets. At number 19. At number 18, I have Michigan. Now, I will say, I'll give a disclaimer here. There's some uncertainty about this team because even though they had those self-imposed sanctions last week, Sharon Moore is going to miss game 3 and game 4, week 3 and week 4, a self-imposed suspension. That was kind of just a method to cover their ass and kind of slap themselves on the wrists before the NCAA does it for them. And so he could end up losing more games or different games. That could very well impact how this Michigan team looks because there are some teams that are so together and so self-coached. That's a huge term, is self-coached. When you can wire your guys to where you have leaders on the team that can fill in for your role as a head coach when you're out, that's how you're damn unstoppable. And that's what Michigan was in 2023 when Harbaugh missed a couple games. They were self-coached. I mean, they had McCarthy. They had Corum. They had Sandstrel. They had all those guys in place that could take the reins. I don't think Michigan is quite there yet. They've lost a lot of that seniority. They're building themselves back up. This is a more youth team than they've had these past several years. But this is a team with a tough identity. And this is a team that's very talented. They've continued to recruit at a high level. And they've got Bryce Underwood in the building. I know that was a big story, a big recruiting story a couple months ago, and they got him from LSU. Well, according to most out there, it's going to be Bryce Underwood starting this year, which is good and bad. It's good because this could be the best quarterback that Michigan has seen since like Tom Brady, if I'm not mistaken. But it's also a freshman quarterback. So there's going to be some growing pains. The receiver room is not exceptional. So it's going to be some growing pains, but he's so talented. He's going to have Michigan in contention. And so I've got them at number 18. At number 17, I've got the Miami Hurricanes. Little bit of a drop off from last year. You know, lost Cam Ward. You lost Xavier Restrepo. You lost Elijah Arroyo. You lost Corey Flagg. But this is still a team, kind of like I alluded to with Georgia Tech, that's chock full of blue chip guys, chock full of SEC Big Ten caliber guys. And it's a very talented team. You go down there and see their practices. That is a team full of dogs. And so the expectation was there last year, and it's there again to be elite, to compete for an ACC title. But we'll see if they actually do that this year. I think this is still a very talented team, but their ceiling isn't as quite as high as it was last year. That's why I have them at number 17. But don't get me wrong, Mario Cristobal is doing some incredible things this year. And Miami will continue to be in the mix in the ACC as long as he's there. Number 16. Now, I don't think that their ranking reflects exactly how high their ceiling is. This is a scary team. It's BYU. This team is stacked. Again, a team that kept a lot of their guys from last year. They kept Jake Retzlaff. They kept their linebacker core. They kept Chase Roberts, their star receiver. This is going to be a damn good team this year. No, they were in the running for the Big 12 very late in the season last year, and they just fell out on like the final week. But this after they lost to Arizona State. But this team is scary. This team is scary going into this year, and they have the potential to win the Big 12, and I can very well see them in the college football playoff. All right, at number 15, this is a team that's going to get their swagger back. It's Oklahoma. There's a perception that follows a program like Oklahoma when you have a year like they had last year. And don't get me wrong, that was a year to forget for the Sooners. But the result last year does not define who Oklahoma is. I'll say that again. Last year's result does not define who Oklahoma is at the core. This is a well-coached team. This is a stingy team, a very physical team coached by Brett Venables. They embody his identity as a head coach and a guy. And they made some really good moves in the transfer portal. Getting John Mateer and getting Jaden Ott. If you ask me, I think they upgraded at quarterback, getting John Mateer. I think that's an upgrade over Jackson Arnold. And somebody like Jaden Ott is going to open up that running game in ways that Oklahoma hasn't seen in years. And if you're a Sooner fan, that's something to be really excited about. I think this is a team that turns it around. I think it's a team that can win 10 games this year. I think it's a team that can go to the playoff. A lot of potential this year for Oklahoma. But again, it's potential until we see it. So I've got the Sooners at 15. I know a lot of people have them lower, not even on their list. But I have a lot of confidence in Oklahoma. Maybe it's because I grew up with them as the gold standards, but they still have not slipped out of my mind yet. So Oklahoma at number 15. At number 14, I've got one of my favorites, the Cox of South Carolina. I'm betting on Lenora Sellers' upside. I'm a Lenora Sellers believer. I think I messed his name up. I said Lenora Sellers. Lenora Sellers. I'm a Lenora Sellers believer. I blended the words in together. That was insane. I don't know why I did that. But he is a quarterback, y'all, with a lot of upside. Yes, he can use his legs. Yes, he's really fast. You give him a hole, he's gone. But he's so accurate. He's such a poised passer of the football for being a freshman last year. And you're only going to see him continue to grow and continue to ascend this year. They lost a little bit of production on defense, but it's still going to be nasty. And they're one of those teams who didn't have the hottest start last year, but damn, did they really get together in the second half? And I think that you'll see that version of South Carolina that started to unveil itself in the second half of last season get transferred into this year. This is a scary team and a team with college football playoff aspirations. South Carolina, the Cox, at number 14. All right. To number 13 we go. Guns up. Texas Tech at number 13. Another one of my favorite programs out there. But man, this has been a whole team effort. And if you haven't seen my Texas Tech video from a few weekends ago, I suggest you go back and look at it. What Cody Campbell, the Matador Club founder and director, was able to do with working with Joey Gregoire and his staff to go out and get guys in the transfer portal, it was absolutely unreal. They initially set their budget at $5 million to spend on transfers. They far exceeded it. Cody Campbell, if you all don't know him, he's a billionaire oil business owner here in Fort Worth. I'm alumni of Texas Tech, and the guy's got a lot of money. He's the reason why you see their facilities going to upgrade. He's the reason why they've been able to open up the wallet like they have in the transfer portal, and they've done just that. I mean, this Texas Tech team is incredibly talented. They went out and got Reggie Virgil, Hunter Zambrano, Quentin Joyner. The real question for them, like there's a couple teams out there. You're only as good as your starting quarterback. You know, I said that about A&M with Marcel Reed. I'm saying that about Texas Tech with Baron Morton. And I'm going to say that about LSU with Grant Nussmeier, too. You'll see that in a little bit. But this is a Texas Tech team that is absolutely stacked. I think that they're the second most talented team in the Big 12 behind Arizona State. But for a team that finished the season unranked last year, to have them up at 13, there's a reason why I do. And I have a lot of belief in Texas Tech. And I know I've fallen for the bait in the past when it comes to Tech, and I paid the price for it. I made a video about them in the summer of 23 saying how good they were going to be, and then they lost to Wyoming week 1. So I could get burned here. You know, I admit that. They're one of those teams. But this one just feels different. I may pay the price for saying that, but I got Texas Tech at number 13. Number 12. I actually think that this is the ultimate dark horse team in college football. I don't think a lot of people realize how good this team actually is going into this year. It's Illinois. And I'm not mincing words when I say this. They can compete for a Big Ten title. And I know you may laugh at me, you may scoff at me when I say that. You know, given your Penn States, your Oregons, your Ohio States, your Michigans, your Indianas of the world. But this team, y'all, it's right in the mix. Illinois is right in the mix. They've had 76% returning production, third in the country. They're a real under-the-radar team. You got Luke Altmaier coming back, who was starting to really get comfortable last year. Brett Bielema building a great, consistent culture. Illinois, both in football and basketball, they're becoming a household name. You're seeing them in the rankings every year. And I love that for the Fighting Illini. So, again, they finished the season strong with their bowl win against South Carolina. That was electric. I want to see those teams play again here soon. But I've got Illinois at number 12. The team plays with a chip on their shoulder, and it goes a long way. Number 11, this is one of my favorite teams out there. I think that this can be a Final Four team this year. I think you can see them towards the end of the road in the college football playoff. And this is a Big 12 team, so it goes a long way. It's Arizona State. All right. Kenny Dillingham, for being a 35-year-old head coach, has done an amazing job building a culture there. I've said he's like the Dan Campbell of college football. He's fiery. He's himself. He's authentic. Guys buy into him. And that goes a long way. It's kept this team together. They've been able to keep last year's core together. I know they lost Cam Scatterbo. He went on to greener pastures as he went to the NFL. Cheers to him. I hope he does great with the Giants. But Arizona State, 79% returning production. That's good for second in the nation. And they went on a run last year towards the end of the season. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they were as good as they were. I think it's any coincidence that they almost beat Texas. That's actually who they are. That's who this Arizona State team is at the core. And I could picture a scenario where they cruise to a Big 12 championship. They're that good. Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham at number 11. All right. Time to take a swig of water because it's top 10 time. We're going to post a graphic for this at the end too, my top 10. But this is the one I'm going to warn y'all. I know I had some controversial rankings over the past, 15 teams. I know some people may scoff at Texas Tech. People may scoff at Georgia Tech. Do I give a shit? No. But that is what it is. I take on the smoke as it is. But I'm telling you, fair warning, if you want to proceed here, there's going to be some of these rankings that are going to piss some of y'all off. But nonetheless, we're going to traverse in the top 10 here. And here's one to kick it off. All the way up at number 10, I've got the Florida Gators. I have that much belief in this team. Their schedule was unbelievably challenging last year. And it's going to be again this year too. But this is a team that's been trying to find their footing with Billy Napier. And it's tough to really get a cadence and really get a rhythm when you're getting punched in the mouth every week. And they were given a ruthless schedule last year. And I'm not somebody who's going to make excuses for a team or use the victim card. But there is a certain point in time where you got to be real about things. And Florida got screwed last year with their schedule. And it's not much easier this year. But I think Florida is a lot more mentally prepared for what they're going into because of the challenges that they faced last year. They have potentially the best quarterback in college football in DJ Lagway. Is he right now? No, but he can be. Again, just like another Lenora Sellers. No, a freshman quarterback who showed so much promise as the season went on last year. He came in after Graham Mertz got hurt in that Tennessee game. And as he became more assured himself, you started to really see his true colors show. And man, that guy's a baller. He has all of the tangibles of a guy who's not only a great college quarterback, but a great NFL quarterback. And they're another one of those teams like South Carolina, who I think the second half of last year, they really found their identity and they got their footing as a program. And you're going to see that transfer into this year. So I got Florida at number 10, betting on their potential. Could I get flamed for it? Yes. But it's a risk I'm willing to take. At number 9, I've got a team who was just in the Natty. It's Notre Dame. They're a little iffy at the quarterback position after they just lost Steve Angeli to Syracuse. So CJ Carr is going to be their guy this year. But Marcus Freeman has built an incredible culture there, man. He's and that's scary too, because if you can get guys to come to Notre Dame despite the rigorous academic standard, because that's been a deflector these past couple of years. If you get guys to come there regardless of that, they're willing to submit to that, you're going to build something scary because you're going to get some smart players as well, some smart players and some talented players. So it's a scary machine that Marcus Freeman is assembling right now. I'm not going to sit here and say that was a fluke run they had last year. Again, they belong in all those games. They beat Georgia outright. They beat Penn State outright. They had their hands full with Ohio State, but at the end of the day, who didn't? And so this is a Notre Dame team, a little bit of a step back, but a team I can easily see winning 9 or 10 games this year. I have them at number 9 going into the season. Number 8, I may get flamed for this one for having them so low, but I've got the Oregon Ducks. They lost a lot of guys last year. Losing Dylan Gabriel, losing Tez Johnson, losing TJ Ferguson. Those were guys that were at the heartbeat of this team, that were at the nucleus of this team. It's the Dante Moore era. And what I like about Dante Moore is that he spent time sitting behind a seasoned quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, so that can give him a lot of maturity going into this year. And so that can be incredibly beneficial for Oregon. If he hits the ground running, they can very much repeat as Big Ten champions. They retained a lot of guys on defense. Bryce Botcher, Mattia Wongalele, Tatum Tuti. They retained some key guys on defense. And this is a top 5 program. As far as culture goes, I mean, the infrastructure that Oregon has right now is something that only a few others have. And the teams in that conversation are like your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Ohio States, your Texases, Miami starting to become that, where you just have depth at every position and a culture that everybody in that building submits to. There's very few teams that have that. But Oregon does. And so for that reason, they're a team that I will just blindly trust. They lost a lot of guys, but they kept some key guys. I've got Oregon at number 8. At number 7, I've got the defending national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes. A little bit of a fall off here. Again, losing guys to the draft. You're going to have Julian Sayin or Xavier St. Clair as your starting quarterback this year. And so that'll be an interesting quarterback competition. I think that Sayin will prevail. But Ohio State, they kept Jeremiah Smith, of course, the freshman last year. We were only 17 years old. They retained Carnell Tate. They almost lost him to the portal, but they're able to keep Carnell Tate. So that's huge. And this is another team that just, they've got the identity about them. They're a winner. That's just who they are. And so they'll have to regroup a little bit. It's always like, especially now having a 12-team format that may be expanding to 16, it's going to become harder and harder to repeat as national champions. And just having NIL in the transfer portal and having to retain guys, it's going to become harder and harder to repeat as national champions. But Ohio State's got that culture, and so I trust it. So I've got them at number 7. At number 6, I've got Georgia a little bit lower than I would have had them going into the season last year. There was uncertainty at the quarterback position. Gunnar Stockton's a good, safe quarterback, but can he do what he needs to do when the lights are bright to secure clutch wins? We'll have to see about that. But he's a good, safe, reliable quarterback. Not special, but really good. There's several rooms that I want to see get improved with Georgia. The running back room wasn't what it was in the past years last year. Even their pass rush wasn't what it usually is. Despite having guys like Jalen Walker, it just wasn't there. It never really materialized. It was a really good Georgia team, obviously good enough to win an SEC championship, but they didn't really have that fear factor like they've had in past years. And so I want to see them get that swagger, get that chip on their shoulder back this year. And with a coach like Kirby Smart, I have no doubt that he will use what they were last year to motivate them going into this year. You know, it's not the Georgia standard. Getting blown out by Notre Dame in a playoff game is not the Georgia standard. I think they left a bad taste in a lot of guys' mouths, and I think you'll see them come back with a vengeance this year, especially now. Like if Kirby Smart is anything of a descendant of Nick Saban, he will use what people are saying about them right now, because a lot of people are counting Georgia out. I think Georgia got left out of the top 10 on some people's lists. You know, people are leaving Georgia out of their expectations, of their potential playoff teams this year. That is being used as motivation in Athens as we speak. So take my advice as you will. Don't leave these dogs out. All right, another swig here. Voluntary swig as we go into the top 5. Oh, that's good, Baron C. Been talking for a while, 34 minutes. All right, let's go. At number 5, this is a team I think that's really got their shit together. LSU. Number 1 transfer class this offseason. They went ham in the transfer portal. You know, this coaching staff, they felt their ass go up to the flame. The seat started to get a little hot after last year. And that benefit of the doubt was starting to fade away. The cushion from beating Alabama and going to an SEC championship and Brian Kelly's first year, it was starting to wear out. And so LSU knew that it had to do something to retain the trust and belief of its fan base. And they're loyal people in Louisiana. They're crazy people in Louisiana, them Cajuns. They're loyal people. And they knew they had to do something to retain the trust of these LSU fans. And so they went ham in the portal. And this class is incredible. And I think that this LSU team, like I said, they're only as good as their starting quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. And he's somebody who has as high of an upside as anybody. But he's a risk taker. I mean, he's a gunslinger. He fumbles sometimes. Like, he turns the ball over a lot. Got to clean up those mistakes this year if you're Nuss. But I think he will. I think they're going to work that out of him in fall camp and in summer practices. And I think you're going to see a mature version of Nussmeier emerge this year. I cannot wait to see them play Clemson week 1 this year. And I've got LSU at number 5. I think they are a high riser going into this season. And again, I'm betting on a stock while it's kind of low. It may not take off. But I got a lot of faith in these Tigers just because of what this program is and what it means in the South. LSU at number 5. All right, number 4. And I've got this team lower than a lot of people do. And I've got my reasons. I got the Penn State Nittany Lions at number 4. Yes, the gang is back. Drew Aller is back. Nick Singleton is back. Katron Allen is back. But they also lost their 2 best players last year, Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren. I mean, them guys are generational. And it's going to hurt on having those guys there. That backfield, like, there's no question, that is the best backfield in college football. It's not even close. And I believe in Drew Aller a lot more than a lot of people do. I think he's got a rocket of an arm. I think he navigates the pocket well. I think he's accurate. I think he's got improved decision-making a little bit. He's a little erratic sometimes. But the upside, kind of like the guy who's talking about, kind of like Garrett Nussmeier. Like, the upside is there. And so Penn State, to me, they've always been like a Baltimore Ravens. It's where, like, you want to trust them. You want to see them go over the hump. They deserve it. They're likable. They've been in the hunt. They've been in the hunt for so many years. They got to get that monkey off their back. But until they do, I can't put them above number 4 and have them associated with the teams here that I have in the top 3. And so, for that reason, I've got Penn State number 4. I think that they're your odds-on favorites to win the Big Ten. But you got to go head-to-head with Ohio State, who they seem to lose to every year. They've got to go head-to-head with Oregon, who overpowered them last year. Illinois is going to be a tough out. But I believe in this Penn State team to win the Big Ten this year. But as far as getting it done in a semifinal game, getting to a national championship, winning a natty, I can't have that conversation yet. I don't have that level of trust yet because I've seen these past couple of years, and I'm kind of scarred. And so I've got Penn State number 4, but just because they haven't gotten there, I'm going to use a Josh Pate line. Just because they haven't gotten there doesn't mean that they can't. They very well can, but I haven't seen it yet. So Penn State number 4. All right, this is the bomb right here. And I'm ready for everybody to come at me with their pitchforks. I'm here. Come at me. But I've got Alabama at number 3. Sue me. I don't care. I believe in the Tide. They have more things going their way this year than they did last year, where it seemed like everything was going wrong for the Tide last year. I feel like everything is going in their direction going into this year. I don't know if y'all realize Alabama didn't lose anybody to the transfer portal in the spring. They've kept this team together. You've got Kalen DeBoer going into year 2 as Alabama's head coach. And so there's more of a rhythm. You know what to expect. You've shaken off the jitters of year 1, if you will, if you're Kalen DeBoer. That's a huge thing. Like last year's result for Alabama going 9-3. Like if you're an Alabama fan, is it shocking like seeing that result? Yeah, absolutely, because you're used to playing in the SEC championship. You're used to only losing one game or 0 a year. But it was to be expected. You had a new head coaching administration come in, but now it's year 2. Now it's year 2, and I expect a lot out of this Alabama team this year. They have their OC that they've always wanted. They've got Ryan Grubb, and so that's gonna be massive. Holy shit! Jackson Bassett is on the live with me here. What's popping?
What's going on? We're in Boston.
What do you think about Alabama at number 3?
Number 3, that's way too high for us.
You think so?
Dude, we're done. Yeah.
I look. I got a lot of trust in this Alabama team.
I don't know until DeBoer starts wearing a polo or button down.
Look, the soup store DeBoer thing has got to.
So I don't look like shit for your interview. Hang on.
No, you got to dress the part on here. But like I will say, like I like the pairing of Ty Simpson with Kalen DeBoer a lot better than I did Kalen DeBoer and Jalen Milroe. Like I just think that it's gonna be a lot more of a fit for the system.
Ty's gonna kill it. Big fan.
I do. I think he's gonna kill it. And then you got Keelan Russell right after him.
I think he should have started last year.
Yeah, there was that was that was definitely a conversation. Like we definitely could have seen him come in at some point last year.
Milroe hasn't done shit.
Yeah, it was last year, especially as the season went on, it started to get really, really troubling with.
What do you think about white wine? Are you white wine or red wine guy, Brian?
I am, depending on the season. Right now, I'm white wine.
Dude, we're killing it. We're in Boston. Check this out. Hang on.
Oh God, not Boston. Oh, you killed the plate of pasta. You got the sauce.
Yeah.
Come on. That's
yeah. How are the dogs doing?
The dogs are chilling. They're
Do you have your own dog now, or are they both your roommates?
They're both my roommates, but they're good. They've been vibing. They're with me all day as I was preparing for the show. And they're really chill. You gotta love those guys.
See the little Jesus piece on the end of the chain. When'd you get that bad boy?
I've always had it.
Hey, you have not.
That's always it's a new one because I lost my other chain in Dallas.
Yeah,
but this is a new one.
That one yet.
Yeah, this one's new. I like it though.
Nice.
It's fire.
Oh, I see. I'm seeing the background pictures. Those are from the apartment, aren't they?
Same ones. I'm gonna get a new sign behind me here soon though.
Hey, I just redid my room in Oakville.
That's right. You're back home. I forgot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm about to finish this meal. I'll catch you later, brother.
Hey, I'll catch you, Bassett. Thanks for hopping on. Y'all have fun in Boston. Tear up in Beantown.
If Cobb gets on, though, let me know.
I will.
I'll join back.
You'll see it. You'll see it.
Little bitch.
I'll see you, Bassett. All right. That was Jackson Bassett, y'all. That's that was my roommate in college. He had to hop on for a few minutes. That's my guy. But yeah, Alabama. Not to get too far off topic here, but they didn't lose anybody in the portal this year. They've kept their identity. You know, like I was saying to Bassett there, I think that pairing Ty Simpson with Kalen DeBoer is a lot better of a fit than Jalen Milroe. Of course, you're keeping Ryan Williams. You're keeping Jeremy Bernard. That running back room is stacked. They added Isaiah Horton. My biggest concern with Bama this year is depth on the defensive line. If of course, you kept TK, Tim Keenan, you kept LT Overton. That's huge. But if any of those guys get hurt, that could be an issue for the Tide. So this is a team that on paper right now, I have them at 3 for a reason. Because this is a team that can win the national championship now. Now that you got the year 1 jitters out of the way, you rip the Band-Aid off. Now you're on to year 2. And I think that this is a team that can compete for a natty this year now with what they have in place. I trust it. Bama at number 3. And I'm not just saying that because I went there. Number 2, I've got Clemson. 81% returning production. And this team, it's all about culture. So for years, Dabo got bashed because, he wasn't using the portal. He wasn't using NIL the right way. Well, now it looks like he was one step ahead of everybody. as he now has his team in place that he has been carefully cultivating these past several years. And it's scary. They got Cade Klubnik, who I think, kind of like DJ Lagway, could be the best quarterback in college football this year. You've got Antonio Williams coming back. You've got Bryant Wesco coming back. You got Peter Woods coming back. Those are foundational guys for the Clemson Tigers. And I think when you pair all that together, like, I know it felt like it was kind of lightning in a bottle towards the end of the year last year when they made the ACC championship. Because Miami lost to Syracuse, they're able to squeak their way in. A lot of people kind of feel like they fell into that position. Trust me, success is never an accident. They deserve to be there. And I don't think it's by any coincidence that they almost beat Texas. I mean, that game was like Texas pulled away in the fourth quarter, but that was a close game for a while. And so I think that Clemson is another team that's getting their swagger back. And I think that you can very well see them being the national champion this year. I think this is a team that is capable of winning the national championship, kind of like Alabama. So I've got Clemson at number 2. I think that your top, let me see. I think your top 8 teams are capable of winning a national championship. Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Penn State, Alabama, Clemson, and Texas are capable of winning a national championship. Texas, that's the best team in the nation. There's not a doubt in my mind. This is the best team in the nation. They look fantastic on paper. Something I always look at when it comes to championship level teams. How are the lines? Offensive and defensive line for Texas is elite going into this year. And a little bit that we saw of Arch last year, he looked like a dog. And, he's one of those guys. It's not just because of the name on the back of his jersey. That's just because he's a Manning. This guy is a dog. He plays with an aggression, and he plays with a drive that's needed to be a championship quarterback. And, like, this is, if you're a Texas fan, like, this is the year. This is the year that Texas has been building brick by brick for. And now it's time to capitalize. But I think this year could finally be the year that they get done. I think Texas is your odds-on favorite to win it all this year. This is your number 1 team in the nation going into 2025. All right, there it is. That is my top 25 teams in the nation. I know it's kind of long-winded to 47 minutes in, but, we did 25 of these things. So, it is what it is. Let me know what y'all think of these in the comments. I'm sure I'll have quite a few. There's a couple teams, a couple of bubble teams that I want to mention. One of them is Tennessee. They've got some murkiness going on with the quarterback situation. Whether it's Joey Aguilar or Jake Merklinger, we'll have to see. But they lost a lot of guys last year, and so Tennessee's a team I'm a little uncertain about. They can be 9-3. They can be 3-9. They're kind of a wild card. TCU is just outside of the top 25. I love the fact they kept Josh Hoover for one more year, but losing Savion Williams, losing Jack Betch, like that's huge. You've got there's no more Johnny Hodges there. That's huge. But I think they may have kept a lot in place there at TCU for them to be competitive. I think that can be a top 25 team. UNLV, I think, is your biggest challenger in the G5 to Boise State for what they've done these past couple of years. Don't forget, y'all, Dan Mullen's their head coach now. And you saw he did at Mississippi State. He brought a team back from the dead. You saw he did at Florida, brought a team back from the dead. Now he's going into a team who has kind of had an identity the past couple of years. He's going to bring that thing from one level to the next. I can't wait to see what Dan Mullen does in Vegas. But that's a team with a lot of potential this year. SMU is just outside the top 25. I just think they lost a lot of guys. And I like Kevin Jennings a lot. But I think that that team does take a little bit of a step back going into this year. And then Auburn. This is a team that you're just waiting to take the next step. And they're going to at any point. But, they're kind of like an A&M. where, like, until you see it, I'm not going to put them in the top 25. But Auburn is one of those shark fins that you see circling around the top 25. And they can be there here soon. One more that I got for y'all, right outside the top 25, Baylor. I love Sawyer Robertson. I think that's going to be a top 25 team at some point this year, but they are just outside of the top 25 right now. And so there it is. There is the BGG top 25. We'll be doing these every week during the season, but that's my post-spring with the portal closed, my top 25. All right. Now, we had a big contract extension announced the other day. I was in the stockyards, the Fort Worth stockyards, having a Busch Light apple when this came out. Brock Purdy finally got his extension. It wasn't a matter of if, but it was a matter of when. Now, the 49ers started these talks back in late October, even when their season was starting to fall apart last year. This is their guy. They've been locked in. They've been committed. They want to, if you want to use corporate jargon, they want to put a bow on it. And they did for 5 years and $265 million. Now, you see that, it's an annual average value of $53 million per year. And that can shock a lot of us. It kind of shocked me when I saw it because I was one of the people saying, like, I like Brock Purdy. He brings a lot of value to this team. You look at his track record, his agent is going to have a hell of a lot of leverage when it comes to negotiating here because of his resume compared to guys that people christen as top 5 quarterbacks. Like he's been to pastures that Josh Allen hasn't seen, that Lamar Jackson hasn't seen. He's played in a Super Bowl. He's been there. He's done that. And so there's bargaining power there. But I was saying that, like, when things aren't perfectly in place for Brock Purdy, you have guys injured, he does kind of regress a little bit. And that's something to keep in mind. Last year threw more interceptions than he ever had. So the momentum was starting to slip away. But because of what he's done, depending on how the contract is structured, it could be justified. Well, I wasn't big in the $53 million a year. But when you really break the contract down and see how this thing is structured, I think it's perfect for Brock Purdy. Because the one thing you always have to look to with these contracts, what means more than anything, is the guaranteed money. What's the guaranteed money? I don't care about what pops up on Bleacher Report. What's the guaranteed money? Well, it's $181 million per year. I want to see him get something like 165, 170. It exceeded a little bit. I'm not upset at that. I think that 181 million guaranteed for Brock Purdy is perfect, and he gets 165 million of that in the first 3 years. So it's a very heavy loaded contract, so that San Fran doesn't get stuck. Because if this is one of those things where the relationship's not going the way they expect it to, they can get out of it sooner rather than later because he has most of his money. But I think they're a great pairing, so I don't think they'll have to resort to that. But they've got that safety net in place. I love the structure of this contract. I think that Purdy deserves it. Where a lot of my concern is rooted here when it comes to the 49ers overall is the fact that they have 72% of their current cap tied up into 7 guys. Brock Purdy's making $53 million a year. Nick Bosa's making $34 million a year. Ayuk's making $30 million. Trent Williams is making $22.5. George Kittle's making $19. Fred Warner's making $19. C-Mac is making $19. It's a lot of money tied up into 7 guys, and it's gonna. When you commit that much to 7 guys, those can be financial constraints that can limit you to assembling your team elsewhere. That's what I love about teams like Philly, like Kansas City, is they don't overcommit to guys. Unless it's like your core, they're willing to let guys walk. Giving George Kittle a second contract as he's starting to get older, that was a little concerning to me. That's something I don't think Howie Roseman would have done that. I think that he would have known the value you could have got for him and would have let him walk. But saying that, I love George Kittle. And when he's on the field, he is a difference maker. And San Francisco is a different team on the field. So John Lynch saw that value and he locked him in just because of that. And you could say the same for Brock Purdy. And these are your foundational guys, don't get me wrong. It's just a lot of money. And there's not as much wiggle room as I would have liked to have seen. You know, if you're the 49ers as far as planning for the future goes. Oh, my overlay. I forgot that. Ooh, doesn't it look pretty cool? Forgot to put that on there. We're still getting used to this whole StreamYard thing. But we're getting there. We're getting there. It looks pretty cool. It looks dope. But yeah, the Brock Purdy extension, I was concerned that the 49ers were getting to the same position that the Cowboys are in, paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year, because I look at those two quarterbacks, and as far as value goes, they're very similar. They're going to win you 10 games a year. You're going to be interesting. You're going to be competitive with them every year. But are you ever going to win it all? And it's a serious conversation that you've got to have if you're the 49ers. And why I was cautious if they were to go over 55. I was shaky with the Niners going over 50 mil for Brock Purdy. 53, I can take it because of the guaranteed money situation. It's okay. But still, as an organization, when it goes to bringing new guys in, there's not a lot of wiggle room. And I don't love that. I don't love the situation that the 49ers are in from a front office standpoint right now. But you can always restructure contracts. You can always create more cap space. And John Lynch and that front office may do just that. As it stands, it's a little concerning to look at. But Brock Purdy showed we need to show to get this contract. I like it from the guaranteed money standpoint. And so, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations to Brock Purdy. It's well earned. All right. That's the show for today. We're going in on an hour right here at the 57-minute mark. So, once again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of y'all that hopped on here on YouTube and Instagram. We're going to be rotating with YouTube and Instagram with the lives. It'll be one, every other week. Just to kind of build the audience here and funnel people from TikTok, Instagram over to YouTube. We've got a method here with the era building this thing brick by brick, like I always say. No show next week. It's Memorial Day weekend, so everybody's going to be out partying on their vacations. Me as well. So we will not be live next week on Memorial Day weekend, but the following week we'll be back on here with a show. You'll be seeing Zeke Wager and Luke Close coming through here. But I want to know what y'all think about this top 25 and what you think about this Brock Purdy contract extension in the comments of this video. Thank you all for hopping on here. It's time for me to get my Sunday steak. Have a great day.